And we are live. How's it going, Ben? It's nice to have you back on the stream here.
It is. It's nice to be back on the stream. My Fridays have been empty.
Yeah. So the market's been pretty exciting since we've last jumped on here. We kind of had a brief hiatus last week. I was actually on a mini little vacation. So it's nice to be back, and it's nice to have Bitcoin back over 50,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to like realize this, but Bitcoin's up like 25% in the last 30 days, or is it more than that, like 30%?
Yeah, off of this local low here, just since the end of September, we're up 34%. So yeah, in the past 25 days.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, and I mean, what's been interesting is we've been kind of talking about this on the stream, kind of what is this next rotation of capital going to be, and it's really starting to look like Bitcoin's ready to chug higher again here in the beginning of this quarter four. And if we kind of look at Bitcoin dominance, which we've been looking at for the past couple weeks now, almost over a month, it looks like this has ended up being a local bottom here. So I'm curious to see how much Bitcoin really goes and outperforms moving forward here. If we see it come back up into this 50% of crypto market cap back up here, or kind of how prolonged this Bitcoin move is going to be. We had one of these back in December, and you can see it got back up near the 50%. So I'm curious to see if we go higher than that, or if kind of alt seasons begin to take off here in quarter four. All I know is I've been talking a lot about Bitcoin dominance and a little bit fearful of a Bitcoin dominance run, but I've kind of just decided to sit in my altcoins with the thesis that they're going to outperform anyway, whether it's in quarter four or quarter one.
Yeah, quarter one of next year.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting, right? Because so let's say there's talks of this Bitcoin ETF at the end of this month. I mean, the bulk of new investments is going into Bitcoin. So what does that mean? That people like us are selling Bitcoin and rotating into altcoins? Like,
Yeah,
I kind of wonder where that capital is coming from.
yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I'm also curious to see, like, we're rallying and everyone's attributing it to the Bitcoin ETFs. So I'm curious of what kind of move we get if this approval doesn't come through and we get a rejection. Um, I think initially it's going to be kind of a hard rejection across crypto, but I'm curious to see if alts start picking up again and seeing kind of capital flow back into altcoins as the Bitcoin ETF kind of fizzles down.
Yeah, I feel like this run started before everyone started talking about the ETF this month. I feel like it started like a week before that. So I don't know. My thoughts are like, if it gets rejected, it'll be like a sell the news story liquidation event because everyone got too bullish and got too much leverage, and then it'll just start going straight back up. Meaning, I think the price is unrelated. The story just happens to be there. And I feel like that's
I
usually the case with Bitcoin.
I agree 100%. I think it's just happening to be the catalyst around this time. But I mean, this is something we've seen Bitcoin's strength here since we bottomed here a little midway past July. And ever since then, Bitcoin has shown strength in the market. And this has been way before people were attributing this move specifically to the ETF. One thing that I
Exactly.
do think is really interesting here is how much Bitcoin is outperforming traditional equities here. And I just like looking at NASDAQ tech just because I feel like it correlates the most to Bitcoin. And it's just interesting that we've had this, how long has this downtrend here been? Since September, the beginning of September, there's been a micro downtrend inside of equities, and we still haven't broken this little trend line. So it's really interesting to see that while equities got a small bounce, maybe 3% bounce, and of course, Bitcoin's always going to be more volatile. Um, Bitcoin is up close to 30%, and kind of I love the idea that everyone who's watching equities is kind of watching this in it's a small correction, but they're seeing this correction and then they're just seeing Bitcoin charge higher. And I think that's really important sort of for this narrative moving forward, starting to see Bitcoin decouple from traditional markets, because there are times when Bitcoin does react very correlated to NASDAQ and S&P. Like right here, it was correcting a little bit with the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, but then it's just been on a tear since. So that's always really bullish signs to see that.
Yeah, and now I'm seeing the same stories too about money from gold is flowing into Bitcoin. So I don't know if you could pull up a gold chart. And you can see how that looks.
I got it right here. Let me zoom out a little bit. So this is the weekly. It's absolutely messy. Let me just take everything off of here. I haven't looked at this in a while. And so this is really interesting.
It looks like a higher low on the weekly.
Yeah. So this is interesting here because gold is kind of just in this massive flag here ever since it broke all-time highs. So gold's been flagging here. And I think this is also really important for Bitcoin because it's outperforming sort of this store of value as gold. So I think that's also kind of creating more fundamentals. But I think this is something as well where just in the overall macro backdrop we have, I think gold will do very well. It's just also nice to see Bitcoin outperforming gold, kind of bringing the eyes into crypto, which at the end of the day trickles into DeFi.
What does silver look like? This last one I got for you.
My silver chart's a little messy here too, but
I love how you have all these charts ready to go.
Yeah, this is my overall markets bin. So it's all ready to go. But silver, kind of a similar thing, except, I mean, it's sitting in relative strength. And it's just kind of holding a triple bottom here almost. So same thing. It's gotten both gold and silver had this massive impulse up here. When was this? In spring of 2020. But ever since then, they've just kind of been flagging out and consolidating. So nothing too crazy happening on the metals, which is we're seeing strength in Bitcoin. And I think it's very great for that store of value term kind of analogy.
Yeah, I wonder if gold and silver, and this is not a gold and silver podcast, but I wonder if they're going to almost follow Bitcoin here as people look to rotate out of equities or are currently rotating out of equities.
Yeah, it definitely should be interesting. And gold and silver is something I always have my eyes on, especially as Bitcoin starts getting up into the 70, 80, 100,000 range. I think that gold and silver are great kind of places to rotate into some of these Bitcoin profits when we start breaking all-time highs and getting up into these higher ranges. And enough of kind of just like what I would refer to as boring market talk. I want to get into some layer one DeFi networks and the kind of the honeypot of volatility currently in markets. So I think it's always fun. We'll jump into DeFi Llama here and we'll just kind of look at how all these layer one networks are performing. And I think most importantly, like we can just start at looking at the entire DeFi ecosystem as a whole. And TVL is at all-time highs. We're seeing immense capital inflows back into DeFi. And most specifically, it's coming in on a lot of these new layer one side chains, things like Solana, Phantom, Avalanche, Terra, Polygon. We're seeing a lot of capital inflows. And a lot of it is probably because of these incentive programs that we're seeing. There's really high yields that are starting to pick up. It is interesting that we are seeing DeFi start to heat up again, like we saw in DeFi summer, August of 2020, and then also January of 21, if we're looking at when DeFi blew up on Binance Smart Chain. But it's really interesting that Ethereum, I think Ethereum is actually adding TVL, but we'll see when this loads in. But Binance Smart Chain has kind of just been stagnant and consolidating, which I don't think is the end of the world, but it's just kind of interesting to track and kind of look at where this money is flowing. So Ethereum's trying to put in an all-time high in early September, and it's still gaining TVL. Where on the other hand, we have Binance Smart Chain kind of just consolidating in TVL. Once this loads in, you'll be able to see. So I think it's just interesting watching this capital start to spread out a little bit over the networks.
Yeah, I was just kind of comparing Solana to BSC on my screen, and definitely some growth in Solana lately.
Yeah,
But
so I'm curious to see kind of how this continues to play out. I think a lot of it is just all the capital is trying to be early to these ecosystems, right? They're trying to catch the next Ethereum, the next Binance Smart Chain. Also, a lot of these networks, Avalanche, for example, has brand new incentives. So they have these boosted yields on the chain, which is incentivizing this capital. You could actually see here, Avalanche is still seeing a massive uptick in TVL. Their rush incentives just went live on a few different platforms. I know right when it went live, I was seeing USDC interest rates around like 45% on things like Aave and Benki, which is kind of insane for USDC.
yeah, the I will mention the chain that I'm keeping my eye on, which actually hasn't put out its mainnet yet, is Kronos.
Mm-hmm.
That's the crypto.com chain that's got, to me, it's similar to BSC. So that, like, to me, now's a good time to get into CRO token.
Yeah, and I know
before mainnet goes live.
We were chatting about this a bit. And it's really just like what's important is that that intersection between CeFi and DeFi, while a lot of people like may be sour on it, it's actually an extremely useful tool for bootstrapping the network and onboarding users. It also sounds like Kronos does have some sort of ecosystem incentives as well they're looking to deploy. I'm not 100% sure on that, but between those two catalysts and sort of all this capital spreading out across layer ones, I think it's definitely something that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, we're seeing TVL flow into all of these new chains as long as there's people building on them.
Yeah, the only thing I worry about, there's too many chains now. And so, like, BSC was in a position early on where it was basically ETH and BSC. But now I don't know if any one protocol is going to have that same rally that BSC had. I think they'll be good. But, I mean, BSC TVL, how high did that get? Like 50 billion? 60 billion?
And I mean, we can look here on DeFi Llama, but we were actually talking about this before the stream. It's actually a little bit hard to get precise data on these things. I know DeFi Llama for a little bit didn't have the best data on Binance Smart Chain. Now it looks like they are the most accurate, but here on DeFi Llama, it looks like BSC got up to 32 billion, which is extremely notable. And yeah, it'll be interesting because the more chains that pop up, no matter what incentives programs, sort of what user funnels there are for bootstrapping, the capital is only going to spread more thin. So I'm curious to see what happens and if any chains are really able to kind of become more distinct and set themselves apart from the others. If I had any pick, it would be Solana. Most of these chains are just almost side chains for Ethereum. They're just layer ones like Binance Smart Chain that are EVM compatible, like Phantom, like Avalanche, which is great in interoperability. It makes it really easy to deploy smart contracts that are on other chains and even cross-chain liquidity. But I don't know if that's the most sort of efficient scaling solution to just keep popping up side chains every time one gets clogged up. So it's definitely interesting what's building out here.
And what's nuts to me is the ETH TVL at 142 billion, even though for the majority of people it's just like unusable. So where is this money coming from? Like, it's even someone that wants to deploy 200 grand worth of capital probably doesn't want to use Ethereum, right? The fees are too high.
Especially if you're going to be actively trading it. Maybe if it's something set and forget, it's not the end of the world. But even then, like if you're going to be moving the capital, on a $200,000 portfolio, $100, $50 fees don't really make sense. So what I personally think is there's just a lot more institutional money in DeFi than we think, whether it's just family offices or bigger capital than that. But I think Ethereum DeFi is the embodiment of kind of institutional capital in DeFi. And then when you start getting to more of these side chains, Binance Smart Chain, Avalanche, Phantom, I think you're getting a little bit more into retail. It suits them better, even Solana. But I think it's just a matter of time that this kind of institutional capital realizes anyway that there's no reason to pay $100 fees. They can just take this capital elsewhere, even get better yields. And it just kind of offers more opportunities.
Yeah. it makes me think, in this next run, I think DeFi could easily pass $1 trillion, like almost automatically.
Yeah, and I think that's very interesting here. I wonder if they have it. They don't have it here, but currently DeFi is only 10% of crypto market cap, right? Because crypto market cap's around 2 trillion, I believe, right now. And so I'm really curious to see where this percentage starts to kind of weigh up near the end of quarter one or kind of halfway through quarter one, because this is something I've always talked about. Like, if anything, DeFi should be at least 30 to 50% of the crypto market cap. So the amount of growth that kind of still makes sense to see here, it's really exciting.
It is, and the more capital in DeFi, especially on a percentage basis, the less likely it is to leave the crypto space, right? You might see stablecoin usage, things like that, but if institutions or individuals are using DeFi essentially as savings vehicles, this money just gets trapped there. Like, you're not moving it between your bank account, whereas on an exchange, it's a lot easier, and most likely money on exchange is more intended to actually come out to the traditional finance world.
Yeah,
So,
I definitely agree.
so I think I would like, so if crypto goes to a $10 trillion market cap at the next to this rest of this next top, I would definitely hope we're more like 20% DeFi.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's easy. I think personally, as we start to see crypto market cap grow as a whole, I would like to believe it's being fueled by DeFi growth. So that percentage is growing faster. So maybe crypto market cap 2 to 5x's from here, but that means DeFi kind of market cap or TVL. And just something important here. I said 10% looking at this here, but that's definitely wrong because I'm looking at total value locked and comparing it to market cap. But there is some tooling platform that you can look at DeFi TVL. It's probably something like CoinGecko even has DeFi market dominance. But I would like to assume that DeFi is going to outperform crypto. And I think that's just a no-brainer because as crypto market cap continues to grow, it's going to be fueled by the growth of DeFi. I think the latest trend we're seeing, and there's no reason for it to continue, and it's kind of been the trend over the past year, is that capital is flowing into DeFi. And that's what's really driving the growth of the crypto space.
Yeah, and we're going to see more and more exchanges start to offer DeFi products. Like, I know that's something Coinbase wants to work on. Easier said than done for them. Obviously, Binance already does it. Crypto.com does it as well. So,
FTX a little bit as well.
Yeah, so it's that whole CeFi DeFi narrative is just going to keep trapping liquidity, because why even move your stable coins out of DeFi when your bank account's giving you a 0.01% interest rate?
Exactly. And I think a really big issue right now, and it's only kind of perpetuating with all these side chains popping up, is the friction between getting through these DeFi networks. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, while Polygon, Phantom, Avalanche, Arbitrum, Terra, all these networks you see here on DeFi Llama, they're interoperable of some sort. There's a lot of friction between these things. The other day I was trying to swap onto Solana and I ran into issues of I bridged over in a liquid token, and I was having issues swapping. So I think this is a really big kind of thing that needs to be overcome. While there is interoperability, there's extremely high amount of friction. And I think that's a big reason why there's still a lot of TVL trapped on Ethereum, because it's just clunky to move this capital around currently, even if there are better opportunities.
Agreed. And I think what we saw for the last year is, DEXs are played out, yield optimizers are played out, options are pretty well established at this point, derivatives trading. I think the next boom for DeFi is going to be bridging, providing liquidity to that. I think that's where the next boom is. And I know you've been following a project that's working on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you literally just gave me a perfect tangent here.
I'm here to give you a segue.
And so this started with Nerve Finance on the Binance Smart Chain, and they're a cross-chain liquidity protocol. But they ended up forking, actually. So they rebranded to Synapse. Nerve Finance, I think still, or I know it's still going to be a token, but it's solely going to be on Binance Smart Chain. And I think it's just running off of some AnySwap pools. So Nerve Finance is no longer in the spotlight. The kind of project I'm looking out for now is Synapse, and the market's definitely recognizing this. You look at Synapse in the past 30 days, it's up 470%. So the market is completely sort of already starting to price this in and understanding that a seamless cross-chain liquidity bridge is extremely important. And I think currently right now, like, this is the bridge, one of my go-to bridges I've been using. They support BSC, Polygon, Arbitrum, and Avalanche. So they are missing a couple things. I know they have plans of Solana, but that's obviously a little bit more difficult of a bridge to execute. I wouldn't be surprised to see Phantom come on here soon, but I know that Synapse has very solid liquidity for getting to these chains. And these are the type of things that I'm starting to see that are reducing the friction between DeFi. I think I even saw that Synapse was mentioned in some sort of traditional finance publication today or the day before, and that kind of got a nice little rally in price here. So this is definitely something I'm keeping my eye out. It's also been nice, like, if you've been tuning into the streams, Nerve and Synapse has been kind of something I've been talking about for the past few months here. So it's continuing to outperform. The valuation is getting a little bit high, but the FDV fully diluted valuation is still sub 1 billion. So for something that is allowing kind of all liquidity to flow throughout DeFi, this isn't out of the realm in valuations when you start to look at other protocols and what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pools right now too, because that's what they need people to do is provide liquidity so that when you bridge assets, you don't get stuck like you did.
Yeah,
and like with this stablecoin pool on Binance Smart Chain, paying 38%.
That's amazing.
So that's pretty good. And then you can look at on the Polygon side, it's 30%. I don't use Arbitrum, but you basically have a, no impermanent loss ETH pool giving you 15.5%.
Yeah, that's actually really nice there. I like those type of pools.
The other day I was trying to bridge from Solana to BSC, and I think I paid $350 in fees just to get from Solana to Ethereum, and that made me annoyed enough that I didn't go the final leg of the bridge transaction. So I'm still on ETH right now. And so if they don't have Solana pools yet, it looks like they must still be working on that. Because in their bridge section, they have Solana. They don't have Solana listed. Never mind.
No, but Solana's kind of been one of the main ones they've been kind of appealing to. But I think they realized it's a little bit more work than hooking them up to some of these EVM layer 1 chains. So for the time being, no Solana. But I mean, there's definitely demand for it. Like, both you and I have experienced this friction kind of going cross chain. I will say it's getting better as time goes on. Like these things take time. Um, I was having issues swapping on Wormhole probably like 20 days ago, last month, and now there's plenty of liquidity there. But then now there's still the issue that Wormhole only goes straight to Ethereum. So now we're kind of stuck waiting till Wormhole can support things like Binance Smart Chain and allow for this seamless bridging we're looking for instead of $300-400 to bridge over a couple tokens.
Yeah, and these pools have plenty of liquidity too.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. I don't plan on bridging $50 million anywhere.
But I mean, overall, I think it's really interesting that one, we've been talking about these things for a while now on the stream. Two, it's being ever more kind of apparent that all these chains are going to be sucking up TVL. You look at Solana, it's just kind of been on a tear. It looks like it's trying to break out again over 14 billion. And then most notably, Phantom had a massive spike in TVL, up to 10 billion now. And this was on the deployment of the Iron Bank, I would like to assume. So Cream Finance and Urine Finance actually deployed their capital efficient lending model on Phantom. So I think that was massive there. Avalanche, seeing TVL in price discovery again, with the Avalanche Rush incentives. Terra, I believe, even seeing close to all-time highs in TVL. So this is something where all chains are going to continue seeing these inflows. So the interoperability between them is immensely important. And the market's recognizing that. Like you look at protocols like Synapse, and it is up 400%, 4.5x in the past 30 days. So I think it's really interesting, just to kind of point that out and looking at how DeFi is coming along and sort of all the different things that are being built out now.
Agreed. It's exciting. This is going to be a fun few months.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm really starting to think like with the way DeFi is going, we might get a little bit of an extended cycle here. I'm not like placing all my chips on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get DeFi and kind of NFT rallies all throughout Q1 instead of just kind of the lights shutting off in January. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it'll be really interesting at this point. There's been so much growth in the space, but like we're already talking about it, there's still an immense amount of room and ground for DeFi to cover, considering the innovation it provides. Just not even in the crypto space, but in the financial space, the art space, and in social spaces as well.
Agreed. Super cycle, sir.
Maybe.
Cycle.
I think we'll wrap things up here, though. It's been pretty exciting in the markets. I will say, while there's been some smaller kind of DeFi tokens mooning, the limelight has been on Bitcoin. It'll be interesting to see how much longer this goes before sort of we get these massive altcoin rallies again. But overall, I'm just kind of sticking to my normal thesis that these altcoins are going to outperform Bitcoin anyway. So a little Bitcoin dominance run doesn't hurt anyone. I do have a little small stack of Bitcoin as well. So it works out win-win either way. But I'm just interested to kind of continue watching all these things build out.
Awesome.
Yep. Thanks for joining me, Ben. And we will be live next week again.
Yes, sir. I'll see you then. There was a quick question. Do we think BSC DeFi will start to run soon? Especially with the NFT stuff on PancakeSwap. I think we'll see. I think it's all going to run. That's kind of my answer. It's just going to rotate.
Yeah. So right now, DeFi isn't precisely what the spotlight's on. I mean, we're seeing things like Avalanche and Phantom garner massive attention. And I think, that capital will at some point rotate back into Binance Smart Chain. And I think the NFTs on PancakeSwap are pretty important for Binance Smart Chain as a whole. That's kind of the first big profile picture collection. And there's no way it's not a blue chip. So I think that definitely starts to garner some NFT attention, which is great for bootstrapping users. So overall, Binance Smart Chain's been a little bit slow, but I don't see why the capital doesn't rotate all within these DeFi networks here.
Awesome.
Thanks for that question, Paras, and I hope you tune in next week. Also, thanks for the comment there as well, Kyle. Peace out, everyone. We will be live next week. Be sure to tune in on Friday.